On the Road with the Western Ag Network.
Hi everybody, it's time for another On the Road segment here on the Western Ag Network. I'm Russell Nemetz. And today finds us in Billings, Montana. That's because the Magic City is hosting the Montana Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame annual banquet this year. And joining us from these fine folks is their president, Mr. Brent Jordan out of Livingston, Montana. And Brent, thank you so much for being with us here on the Western Ag Network. And, you know, we're going to talk about the banquet and what's going to happen here and all the fun that's going to take place this weekend here in Billings. But first, you know, maybe just start things off by talking a little bit about the mission of the Montana Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame.
Yeah, thanks, Russell. Thanks for being here. This is our 18th year doing this banquet here in Billings, Montana, and we have a two-pronged mission statement. One, we honor all Montana's rodeo legends and heroes, and we have a great group of people going in this year, like Bud Munroe is going in, Flint Rasmussen. So we have a plethora. There's a big word for you of talent going into our Hall of Fame this year. So we do that. The other thing we do is we honor and raise scholarship funds for all of our high school kids that are going into college. And so the Montana High School Rodeo Association picks 6 girls, 6 guys, and they can go to college, whether it's Montana State or to Dillon or University of Montana, Texas, Oklahoma. It don't matter, but we provide them with scholarships. And so we're getting awfully close. So year to date, we're going to reach about $700,000 given away in scholarships. So it's a lot of fun.
It is not just fun, but it's an amazing mission that you guys are accomplishing at the Montana Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame. You know, before we went on air, you were just telling me how busy of a summer it's been for not just yourself, but really the entire board of directors.
Just like a rodeo committee, this is a year-round deal. We don't just get together, 2 weeks out from this banquet. It's year-round. And it takes a board of volunteers. We're all volunteers. We have a board of directors. We have an advisory committee that works with us, about 30, 40 people from all walks of life. We all volunteer to make this happen. So just like a rodeo committee, we work year-round. And we also have some events that we do. We go to the Miles City Buck and Horse Sale. We go to the Montana State University Spring Rodeo. We go to the Nile, which is just coming up. So we have other events that we work as well.
You know, let's bring it a little bit closer to home. We're doing this in Billings ahead of your 18th annual banquet. Just talk about the evening's festivities and a little bit about, what's going to take place. You mentioned this year's inductees. Go ahead and mention those fine folks again, but also just how fun it is to bring folks together from all across the West who share that same mission of preserving our Western way of life.
Yeah, that's just it. First of all, we're sold out. You cannot get one more person in this ballroom here in Billings. And we've been playing chess, moving people around, trying to get more people into the ballroom. And that's fantastic. And what's great about this is our collective heritage. People come here, farmers, ranchers, and from all walks of life who love rodeo and who want to honor our rodeo heroes and honor the kids. And so that's what's so great about this is the collective energy that's going to be in this ballroom right behind these cameras here. And well, tomorrow afternoon, the doors open at 1 o'clock. You can come in. We got all kinds of great exhibits in there. We got vendors all out here in the lobby. And then we'll start the program at 5 p.m. That's when the banquet starts. Now, we do have a legacy VIP room, a legacy room where you can come in beforehand, a couple hours beforehand. You can get hors d'oeuvres and meet some of our VIPs, some of your rodeo heroes, get autographs, get up close to them. So that starts early as well. Yeah.
Wow, what a cool experience for attendees. I want to back the train up just for a minute here. Walk us through how the inductees and even the scholarship winners are selected each year and then eventually honored at an event like this.
So after we have our banquet, what we do is we encourage everybody to go to our Facebook page. We're on all social media platforms. But go to our Facebook page, or you can go to our website, montanaprorodeo.org, and you can submit ideas for people that you think should be honored with the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame here in Montana. And then we'll have a nomination open for about 4 months. And then once that's done, it goes to a board of directors, and then we have a committee beyond the board of directors. They sit down and they evaluate all of the submissions, and then we vote on it. And that's the process of getting to all of our Hall of Fame inductees. The kids, that are going into college, they submit their applications to go to the Montana Pro Rodeo High School website. They submit applications there. We actually don't have anything to do with the selection of the kids. That's up to the Montana High School Rodeo Association. They do that. We've removed ourselves from that, but they've done a fantastic job because they get scholarships to kids from Webo, Montana to Libby, Montana, and they've spread it out across the state. We have this big state, so they do a really good job with that. So that's the process. Yeah.
Well, from Webo to Libby, that is definitely quite the swath. Anything else you want to share with our audience today while I have you here?
I tell you what, if you can't be here, and since you're sold out, and if you haven't got a ticket, you can't be here, but you can go to our website, you can go to our Facebook page, you can make a donation to this organization. We are a 501c3 charitable organization, and all the money that's donated goes to those scholarships. And my personal goal, by the end of this decade, I'd like us to have awarded over $1 million. So you don't have to attend to donate. You can call us up, you call Brent Jordan up, say, I'd like to give, $1,000, $10,000, we'll take it. But know that we're all volunteers and it goes right to those kids. It goes to the future of rodeo.
Hey, let's just leave it at that. Brent, thank you for being with us. Great job.
Yeah.
And as he said, folks, you can visit them on their Facebook page or jump online to make that donation or just to learn a little bit more about the Montana Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame. And that website again, friends, montanaprorodeo.org. Welcome back to On the Road here on the Western Ag Network. Again, as we continue our coverage from the 2023 Montana Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame 18th Annual Scholarship Fundraising Banquet and Gathering here in Billings, Montana. And one of this year's VIP guests is really a man that doesn't need much of an introduction, if any introduction, in the Western and Pro Rodeo world. Mr. Shawn Davis, of course. Shawn, thank you for being with us today. And actually, you were born and raised and kind of got your start in the rodeo business and the Western way of life and farming and ranching in good old Butte, America. Talk about that.
Well, actually, I was born in Butte, but Whitehall is where I grew up. So, but I spent a lot of time with my grandparents' little place at the edge of Butte.
Now tell us what you're up to these days. I mean, you said before the interview started, you were saying you're kind of spread pretty thin because you're still obviously involved here in Montana, but you got a lot going on.
Well, there's always adrenaline flow to winning a rodeo. And then when I run the national finals, there was a real adrenaline flow, especially when we moved it from Oklahoma City to Las Vegas. And then the first 3 years, it wasn't filled up, but when that seat's all filled up, and now with it being the most sold out event in the history of Las Vegas, we're quite proud of that.
You know, before we talk about some of the festivities and activities underway this weekend here in Billings, let's just talk a little bit about your storied rodeo career. Talk about being how you got started in the sport of rodeo and eventually working your way up to the NFR and taking home 3 world championships, as I understand.
Well, if we tell it all, we'll be here till tomorrow. But as a kid, I was mesmerized with rodeo from the time I could walk, and I would go. My parents were very into rodeo at that time, so I stayed a lot with my grandparents, and I started by riding calves and breaking ponies, and then actually we didn't have high school rodeo much at that time, or as much when I was younger, and so there was a 4-H rodeo. We got in 4-H at high school, and then I went through college on college, and actually college rodeo scholarships back then. But it was interesting because I started, and my heroes were, of course, the Reynoldses. The John Reynolds was a tremendous cowboy. Just never got exposed to some of the things, but he had a lot of influence, and Louis the brother, and then Benny, and then of course Bill Linderman. Bill Linderman was of course everybody's hero on Island. Probably done as much for the sport of rodeo as any individual. In fact, to tell you a quick story, I was pretty successful. I just won the amateur bronc riding at Calgary, and I was coming into Cheyenne, and of course I'd worked some professional rodeos on my way, and I'm getting out of my car. I had a little like kind of a Mustang, and about that time here comes a car driving by and it slams on the brakes, and out jumps Bill Linderman. That'd be like
Really?
John Wayne jumping out, and he said, "Hey, you little asshole." me. He said you've been going to all these rodeos on a permit and you've won $2,200 this month. And he said one of them rodeos didn't even take permits. He said you better join the PRCA or quit coming. So I said, well, so he gets out the papers, and when he looks at it, of course, I wasn't 21. So I said I'll have to send this home to my mother. And what's ironic about this, my mother passed away a couple of years at 100, almost 101, and she kept everything.
Mm.
And I'm going through a box, and I found that handwritten receipt from Bill Linderman
Wow.
when he wrote it out for me to join it was the RCA at that time.
Yeah. That-
But that's and basically I went through college rodeo and went to Western Montana State 1 year in Western Montana for 3, and so I went through a college, and then of course some great things come out of my college rodeo career, and really advanced me, because at that time cowboys, now everybody talks, you can't everybody can take an interview, but that time they didn't want to. Of course, Benny, he just yipped and noped, and but got great, but he also helped me a bunch, but because of that, and they were changing the image of the sport at that time, and I never did drink or smoke, so I got to, and could speak some, and so I got to do a lot of things that I normally wouldn't have got to do if it wouldn't have been for being at the right time.
Well, absolutely. You know, speaking of a lot of opportunities and being in the right place at the right time, as it was told to me, and you mentioned earlier in the interview, you were part of the decision-making process to move the National Finals Rodeo from Oklahoma City to Las Vegas, Nevada. Talk about that decision, how much blood, sweat, and tears went into that decision, and how really that decision way back when has kind of changed the sport of rodeo altogether.
Yeah, I think it probably has been the biggest change. The copying things that was done in the National Finals Rodeo to improve the sport. But the kind of my side of the story is when I done all the publicity I was telling you about, I got to work under some great people, Lex Conley, Tommy Steiner, but they knew how to promote the sport and how to sell tickets. But for some reason, I was always interested in that, and so I paid attention, and I seen, well, I was elected president of the organization, and I think it was '81. And Lynn Butler from Butler Brothers, and anyhow, I was always good friends with them, and I always watched them because they come in the big Cadillacs and dressed to the T, but they knew their sport. And when I was elected president, I went back to Oklahoma City, and he said, "Would you come and sit with me?" A performance. I'd like to visit with you about this rodeo. And at that time, the rodeo at Oklahoma City, or the National Finals Rodeo, was taking about 3 hours and 45 minutes, and it was clouded up good that people didn't come, and our production was not anywhere close to what it is in Las Vegas. And he said and he pointed out 3 or 4 things which I already observed. But he said, if you don't change some of this in the near future,
Mm-hmm.
our sport, this rodeo, is going to not be a success. Well, in the meantime, I'd known Benny Binion for years. One time at Calgary, he asked me to come visit with him, and then after that, Benny Binion has always been a great supporter of rodeo, and to individuals, to the sport itself, and so I was at the college one day. I always had a few race horses, and I slipped off to train a couple race horses about 10 miles away, and I got a phone call on the payphone from a secretary, and she said, "Would you got a call from a man named Harry Wall, that's the CEO of Caesar's Palace, and he wants to talk to you about the National Finals Rodeo." So, and of course I hadn't handled that kind of business, and so I called him back, and he asked me if I'd be interested in moving the National Finals Rodeo from Oklahoma City to Las Vegas. And of course, I discussed this with Benny several times. I said, I'd have no reason to move the rodeo. I said, Oklahoma City has done a wonderful job. He said, our stands are full. If he was going to do something like this, it would take quite a bit of money to even be considered. And so, of course, as soon as I hung up, I called Benny Binion. I said, "Do you know who Harry Wald is?" He said, "Oh yeah, he's a great guy." and explained it to me. So anyhow, I said, well, Benny, would you meet with me and Harry Wald? They told him what the situation was, and we did. We met. That's where it got started, and then because we had a lot of loyalty to Oklahoma City, and because they'd done everything, they'd built the rodeo from practically nothing up. Because when we left Los Angeles, it wasn't much there, and so we met. I met with our board and we decided after a year that we would, and when the contract was up in a year and a half from that date, and but we didn't want to make any decisions before the contract was up and so on. And anyhow, what happened at the meetings, we had a closed door session, nobody in, nobody out. There were no cell phones at that time. And then they wanted to come in, they'd come in and make proposals, and they'd come back and make a recompose so we could. And at that time, in the first straw vote, Oklahoma City won. I was real adamant, I thought, because to grow the sport, because at that time Oklahoma didn't have the facilities and so on, even though they'd done a wonderful job. But to grow the sport, I thought we had to go somewhere where we had that opportunity, and I knew that Las Vegas was the best thing we had to go. And at that time, Las Vegas needed us worse than we needed them because they shut down. And so anyhow, when they came in with the final proposal, it come to a tied vote, and I was the president. And so with that, had the opportunity to move it to Las Vegas.
Well, it has certainly changed the sport of rodeo forever. And just one more question for you, then we'll let you go. But Shawn, what's it feel like, and what type of honor is it to be the VIP, one of the VIP guests here at this year's Montana Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame banquet here in Billings, and to get to see the latest slate of inductees honored here in Big Sky Country?
Well, of course, I've always been Montana. Even though I traveled a lot, had homes in different states, I always called my home Whitehall, Montana, till the last few years I rodeoed. But it's a very great feeling because these people are putting together the right thing. It's education, support education, and then to be remembered. When you my age, you better hope somebody remembers you done something. But it was great to be here. It's just a wonderful feeling, and that Brent and Larry have done, and that committee has done, and I just appreciate it.
Very good. Well, thank you for being with us today, Shawn.
Thank you.
Again, our guest today has been Hall of Famer in the rodeo industry, Shawn Davis. What a great history lesson that we've had with this interview with Shawn, and certainly thank him for what he's done and what he's continuing to done for the great sport of rodeo. Again, for more information on what the Montana Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame and all these fine folks are doing, you can jump online at their website, montanaprorodeo.org, or you can check them out on Facebook.
Hey everybody, Lane Nordland of Russell Nemetz here at the Western Ag Network, reminding you to join us every Sunday morning at 7:05 Mountain for our weekly Fence Lines and Headlines segment.
That's right, Lane. Every week we feature lots of important conversations and cover lots of issues impacting farmers and ranchers from across the West. Welcome back. Well, it's sure been fun to catch up with a lot of men and women who, rightfully so, just absolutely love the great sport of rodeo. Again, this On the Road segment finds us in Billings, Montana at the 18th Annual Montana Pro Rodeo Hall and Wall of Fame Scholarship Fundraising Banquet and Gathering. And what a great event it's already turned out to be. We're having a ton of fun, great opportunity to catch up with some of the real legends of the sport of rodeo. And one of those legends is joining us right now, and it's Jimmie Munroe, who now calls Texas her home. Of course, she's a world champion barrel racer, she's a Hall of Famer, and now you're president of the Women's PRCA. And thank you for being with us here on the Western Ag Network, Jimmie. And I guess talk about what it's like to be back in Montana and taking part in this year's festivities here in Billings.
Well, first, thank you for having me. And it's always look forward to coming to Montana. My husband, of course, was raised in Montana. I grew up in Texas and was raised in Texas, but spent quite a bit of time here in Montana, and I love Montana. And it's all, like I said, I have such great memories of Montana and being up here with Bud, and so I always look forward to coming.
Well, let's, before we talk about some of the festivities here in Billings this weekend, let's talk about the Women's PRCA because there's a lot of things going on there and a lot of very exciting things in the sport of pro rodeo for ladies.
For women, there is. This is the 75th anniversary of the Women's Professional Rodeo Association. It was started in Texas by a group of ranch women 75 years ago, and it was the very first women's sporting association and run by women, all women, and the LPGA came along a few years later, but the WPRA was the first. So no, it's a great time. I mean, we've had record payoffs this year. It's very exciting. We've had all women's events since we started in 75, but the breakaway roping, women's breakaway roping has become such a popular event in the professional rodeo. And of course, the barrel racing's we've been part of the national finals and been part of professional rodeo since 1948 when we started. But anyway, so this is an exciting time. We approved 450 breakaway ropings at PRCA rodeos this year. And considering that 5 years ago we did 50, so the growth has just really been phenomenal. So it is an exciting time. Record payoffs in our association, and then with the breakaway coming on, it's just a great time. Brittany Posey's going into the national finals in the #1 position with 250,000 in your earnings this year.
Wow.
So
That's
it's
incredible.
been a record. It really is. It's incredible. So anyway, it's just been it's a great year for our sport. Not only the 75th anniversary, but just what's happening.
And before we talk about what's going on here in Billings, I mean, for folks out there, other ladies of all ages, how do we learn more about the Women's PRCA and if somebody wants to just do exactly that or get started in it?
Well, you can, we have a website and a lot of our history, and of course, Facebook and all the modern, times, but where you can go and learn about the WPRA. Just like in the PRCA, when you're 18, you're eligible to buy a permit and can fill your permit and then go card status. So, yeah, so.
Jimmie, whether it's here in Montana or other states out there in this great country of ours, I mean, how important is it still that scholarships are available to both males and females, more specifically to this interview, to help them continue their love and their desire to compete and hopefully, learn some life lesson skills along the way in the sport of rodeo?
Oh, in college rodeo, we're talking. I mean, it's made such a difference. And recently, 2 weeks ago, uh, Mr. Sonny Sykes passed away, and he'd been so instrumental when he took that over in 1948. But college rodeo has grown, and the scholarship opportunities have grown. There are over 3,000 members in the National Intercollegiate Rodeo Association with close to 200 college rodeos throughout the United States. And I said, so many young people probably would not have gone to college without that opportunity to go on a scholarship. And then they stay and they get their degrees, and some of them, they wind up using those degrees. So, no, the National Intercollegiate Rodeo Association has just been a great, in Bozeman, colleges here in Montana all have just excellent college rodeo teams. So, my husband was on one of them from MSU. I was Texas, Sam Houston State University, but he was on the college rodeo team, and they won a national championship. And he was the first one that MSU, Montana State University, ever inducted a cowboy into their athletic hall of fame. And he was as proud of that as anything, being a cowboy and getting inducted into their athletic hall of fame.
Well, that leads me to our last question, and probably the most important question and part of this interview. Speaking of your husband, here in Billings this week, here at the Montana Pro Rodeo Hall and Wall of Fame banquet and gathering, your late husband Bud is going to be recognized and inducted into the Hall of Fame. What's that mean for you, and how special is this to you and your family?
Oh, it's just so special, just beyond words. Because Montana, I mean, that's where my husband grew up. It was so special to him. And to be recognized here in the state and to be included in the Hall of Fame with all the great cowboys that are there and friends of his, and ones that are being inducted this year were friends of his. And so, no, it's just very special. It's special to come back to here and to see his friends. And So just really, there's no words to say how special this weekend is.
Well, we appreciate you very much for being with us here in Billings, and congratulations to you and your family, and of course your late husband, Bud.
Thank you very much.
Again, we've been visiting with the lovely Jimmie Munroe, of course, the current president of the WPRCA, a Hall of Famer and a world champion barrel racer herself. Again, talking about being in Billings, Montana this year for the Montana Pro Rodeo Hall and Wall of Fame banquet, where this year they're inducting her late husband, Bud, into the Hall of Fame. Welcome back to this edition of On the Road Again. Again, we're doing this program from Billings, Montana, where the 18th annual Montana Pro Rodeo Hall and Wall of Fame gathering and scholarship fundraising banquet is taking place. And throughout the program this time around, we've shared some great stories about the wonderful sport of rodeo and what the mission of the event itself is all about. And really, at the end of the day, it's about preserving our Western way of life. And our final guest is doing exactly that, maybe in a slightly different way than jumping on the back of a bronc or a bull or roping a bovine in the arena. Our guest is Jeff Wolf from Utah. And Jeff, you're an award-winning artist. And I guess let's talk a little bit about that in itself and how you've managed to tie your love for art and sculpting into rodeo.
Well, I started riding calves when I was probably 9 years old. Worked my way up through the high school, college, and then into the PRCA. But I'd always sculpted. I started sculpting when I was 5 years old. And, you know, as you get going, your interests lie with, you know, my interest was with the sport of rodeo, but I still kept playing with clay. I just had to do it. And as I retired from rodeo, then eventually it took on a full-time career for me. And I've been sculpting full-time for a little over 30 years now.
Wow, that's incredible. And you've done some amazing work over your career. I mean, you've done sculptures, obviously, for, you know, the NFR, the PBR. I mean, what's it like to kind of be put into the spotlight on some of the world's biggest stages, I guess, when it comes to the sport of rodeo?
Yeah, I always said my rodeo career finally paid off. You know, it's just a real honor to sit here where legends have sat just minutes before me and to meet legends like Ty Murray, Tom Ferguson, Larry Mahan, Shawn Davis that I've known for quite a few years. You know, it's just an honor, and to be here to help support these kids that are coming up with these scholarships is as much of an honor as actually being in these bigger spotlights. So.
Well, it is quite an honor, and it's fun to have you here in Montana. And of course, last year, it was told to me that you did the sculpture for last year's, you know, Deb Greeno, and this year's sculpture for Shawn Davis. And I'm going to ask you to give me the Reader's Digest version, but like, what does it take? What goes into, you know, the preparation and then the actual art of making a sculpture of you know, whatever it might be, but in this case, like some of these world famous, world champion cowboys and cowgirls?
Well, in the beginning, it's a real asset to know what it feels like to be in that buck and shoot and to understand what that animal's going to do. And then it takes research on each individual that I do to try to capture either the animal that they're on or the person themselves. And then there's phone calls and interviews and, like I said, a lot of photographic research. And it's good to actually know the people.
Yep.
And know the sport. And yeah, so really that's the research is where it all starts.
So from start to finish, what's the time frame?
I get asked that question all the time, but it's like anything. The more you do, the better you get, and the quicker you can do it. So I can probably knock out a sculpture the size of these awards in a couple of weeks and 40 years.
Oh yeah. Well, you truly do have a wonderful gift that, I mean, let's face it, only a few people really truly have. But I want to kind of wrap things up talking about, something that is also a passion of yours, and that's all the work and the money you're helping to raise for some pretty important charities out there. Talk about that for us, Jeff.
Well, I had a friend years ago get me started doing charity events. And over that course of time, my work's raised over $1 million for different charities. And, so I don't do a lot of them anymore, but something like this is really dear to my heart. And, so, yeah, I've done work for cystic fibrosis and Susan G. Komen, American Lung Association, and the list kind of goes on and on. But that's and it's all kind of the same. Like tonight, I'll be sculpting, or tomorrow night, I'll be sculpting live and finish a piece that will be auctioned off here for the Hall and Wall of Fame. So
Well, we appreciate you being here in Big Sky Country and
thank you,
bringing
guys.
your passion and your love and your gift of
Well,
sculpting and artistry to the great sport of rodeo. And again, for more information about Jeff Wolf and himself and his sculptures, you can visit him online at jeffwolfstudios.com. Well, as we've been telling you folks for this entire segment, we're in Billings, Montana for the 2023 Montana Pro Rodeo Hall and Wall of Fame 18th Annual Scholarship Fundraising Banquet and Gathering. We've shared quite a few stories. We could literally be here for the rest of the day. There is just that much going on here and just so much history from both the men and women, those that came before us, those that are here with us now, and of course those young people that share this passion as well for keeping the sport of rodeo alive for hopefully generations to come. That is going to do it for this On the Road Again segment. For more information, though, you can jump online at montanaprorodeo.org. Check them out. Think about helping them out with their scholarship cause and maybe get involved with the organization itself. Obviously doing a lot of wonderful things for the sport of rodeo and most importantly, preserving our great and important Western way of life out here in states like Montana and beyond. Again, for the Western Ag Network, I'm Russell Nemetz.
On the road with the Western Ag Network.